أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. I think we start with Surah Al-Fatiha. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين ولعن الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الأولين والآخرين آمين يا رب العالمين. First of all, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. And this is now the second session that we're having on the series of discussions that we're going to have on the book by Imam as-Sadiq titled Misbah as-Sharia, or Lantern of the Path. This session builds on the previous session quite extensively, and I would recommend that everyone at some point maybe read the write-up for both the sessions, simply because the nature of the subject matter, the style of discourse, requires us to understand the previous session before we can entirely grab the nuances of the current session. So for a quick recap, in the last session, which was, as I said, the first of this series, we started to look at the hadith of Imam as-Sadiq regarding this notion of ubudiyya, or servitude. And within the various points within it, we looked at the first one, which is the conduct with God. And we looked at in the context of our conduct with God, we looked at the rights that God has against us. We discussed the greatest right of God, as explained by Imam as-Sajjad in his treatise on rights. We also enumerated the entire list of rights that Imam as-Sajjad has said are God's rights against us. And over here in this session today, we're going to try and move forward and discuss and build our understanding of both God as well as our journey toward God, towards getting ever closer towards God. Just as a quick recap, the rights that Imam Sajjad mentions for God are as follows. First of all, the greatest right of God, which we covered last week. And then you have the right of God against yourself, against your nafs, the right of God against our tongues, against our hearing, against our sight, our hands, our legs, our stomachs, and our private parts. So now looking at these remaining rights, these 8 rights that we haven't discussed at this time, there's a number of ways we can address this. We could go through each of them individually, and that's a completely valid route to take. Or we can look at them in a much more holistic manner. And in fact, if we look at how the right of God against ourselves, against our nafs, is described by Imam Sajjad, we can see that it actually covers all the remaining rights. So he says, the right of God against yourself is that you employ it in obeying Allah, obeying God. That you deliver to your tongue its right, to your hearing its right, to your sight its right, to your hand its right, to your leg its right, to your stomach its right, to your private part its right, and you seek help from God in all of this. The first and foremost component in the right of God against ourselves is that we employ ourselves, our nafs, our soul in his obedience, his worship. And in our previous session, we had actually discussed what worship is so that we can have a better understanding of it. And the importance of this idea of becoming intimate with God, with loving him as he deserves to be loved, of feeling his presence everywhere we go, everywhere we are, with everything we do. Really, this is something truly profound. Indeed, there's many ways that we can commune with and be intimate with God. And we're taught by Prophet Muhammad and his family that the best of these ways is that of the prayer, the daily prayer that all Muslims, no matter their school of thought, perform 5 times a day. Now, within this prayer, we can say that a prayer is perhaps a simple act of service. There is huge benefit. And indeed, according to many of the ulama, many of the scholars of Islamic thought, especially of ethics, spirituality, gnosis, mysticism, the urafat, this prayer is by far the most important, the most beneficial action that any believer can perform. Furthermore, in the act of praying, when we examine it, as we will through the course of today's discussion, we will see that all the various parts of the body are united. They operate in complete unison in order that God be given that which is his due. And this is why it can be thought that, especially in this discussion, that by examining the prayer, we can work together to understand what it means to give God that which is his due, that which is due to him. Now, having said that, and since we have an initial understanding of what the idea of worship is, and we defined it last week as being essentially the notion of loving God, becoming cognizant of him, to be aware of him, to know what he likes, to know what he dislikes, to ask him for our needs, to talk to him when we're happy, to go to him when we're heartbroken, when we're sad, but at every point to have complete trust in him. So with this in mind, let us examine this daily, a simple 2-unit daily prayer, such as the one that is known as the Fajr prayer, the morning prayer, that every believer starts his or her day with. What does this mean? How is this prayer, how is this dialogue, this conference, this meeting? What is it? How does this benefit the one praying? What is the mindset that we should have when we enter this prayer? Together, we're going to try and walk through to understand each aspect and to, inshallah, understand the prayer, the essence of the prayer, such that the next time we go and we perform our prayer, it'll be far more intimate a meeting, like a meeting of two lovers, one who is infinitely more powerful and the other who is needy, weak, sinful, broken, but who has complete certainty that his beloved will always embrace him, will hold him, will listen to his needs, and will provide such comfort as a child finds in the open arms of its mother, that all the tears stop and a feeling of great contentment descends upon him. So considering this simple 2-unit prayer, if we look at it superficially, it's actually very simple, very straightforward, mundane, you might say. Also, and this is actually a very important point, when we're discussing this, I am not going to go into the explicit protocols required for things like the ablution, the place of prayer, the direction of prayer, or the mechanisms that make up the prayer in detail. That's not the purpose of this particular session. The purpose, rather, is to explain and for us to try and understand the essence of what the prayer is, what it should be, what it can be when approached with the correct understanding and the correct frame of mind. Also, while I'm discussing this, generally I might use the term his to describe the subject, the one praying. This should not be understood in any sort of gendered manner. Rather, this his could easily become her. It's about the person engaged in this devotion. The gender is not relevant in this discussion. This is actually quite an important point to bear in mind so as to avoid any confusion, because in other sessions in the past, when I've used this type of terminology, people have become upset. Also, in the Also, in the interests of brevity, and so that we avoid repetitions, we will go through the two units, but we'll treat them as a single unit. Now, this might sound a little bit strange, maybe counterintuitive, but what I mean will be made clear as we go through. All I ask to everyone listening is that you place yourselves in a reflective state of mind and think deeply about what is being said. So in the name of our beloved, we proceed. Give me a salawat, please. So the first point is that of the ablution, the cleansing. The one praying must first perform the ablution, cleanse themselves. However, what is the meaning of this ablution? What is it? Is it just to remove dirt that's accumulated over the day or the last few hours or while we've been sleeping? Is it perhaps to splash water on our faces so as to wake ourselves up? Or is it the preparation that a lover would do to visit his beloved, to make himself handsome and beautiful, clean, smelling nice, well groomed, so that when he goes to visit his beloved, he is well presented, he smells wonderful, he's clean, and is wearing good, clean clothes, looking smart, and like it is said, and you're looking very presentable. Think about this. When a person goes for a business meeting, when they go to speak to their manager, to their boss, they'll always make a point to be well groomed, that their clothes are well presented, ironed, looking smart, all of this. Sometimes the term, I think, prim and proper is used. Others might say, oh, he looks the part. They're presentable. Why is this? Have we ever considered why we do this? When a young man is preparing for, say, a job interview, for example, without a doubt, his parents or guardians will tell him to make sure his shirt is well ironed, his hair is well groomed, his beard and mustache are smartly trimmed, his shoes are polished, and that his suit is crisp and looking perfect. If it's a young lady who is preparing for such an interview, the same applies. She will wear good, decent, and proper clothing. She'll make sure her hair is well groomed. As a believing, free, and modest lady, she'll ensure that her hijab, her headscarf, and veil are properly worn, that nothing is out of place, that everything is perfect. Why is this? Why do we do this? Well, if we think about it, if we do a little reflecting, firstly, being clean, being well groomed and smartly dressed, this has huge psychological benefits on the person. Indeed, according to some scientific studies that I went through while researching all of this, the actual act of being well groomed, being smartly dressed, being clean, these help to calm a person down. They actually reduce stress levels. When we go to perform our ablutions for the prayer, this is also to calm us down, to reduce anxiety and stress. Perhaps a person's had a really difficult day. Maybe things haven't been going well, or they've become extremely busy. Life, as we discussed in our series on patience, can become difficult and challenging. And so the act of washing our faces, our hands, our arms, all of the various components of the ablution can and do have a calming effect. Furthermore, when performing the ablution, known in Islamic terminology as the wudu, there is a need to be focused, to be mindful of what you're doing, and to go through this process in a very orderly and methodical fashion. As with any action that a believer undertakes, there is first and foremost the intention. This is where they consciously acknowledge that they're, in this case, cleaning and preparing themselves as a means to become closer and for the pleasure of their beloved. In Islamic thought, the idea of the intention is extremely important. And we'll be covering this shortly as we get into the actual prayer. But for now, we can say that a believer should always make a conscious intent before they commence any task, irrespective of how mediocre, mundane, or irrelevant such a task might seem. Think about this. Consider someone wants to go to a shop to buy some milk. For example, such a person, such a believer, should make a conscious intention as they begin this task that they're going to the shop to buy milk, which will give them energy or please their loved one or child. And all of this will become a means for them to become closer to their beloved, to God. Even something as simple as this can bring about huge spiritual blessings. And for such a simple act, and also if we look at it from a psychological perspective, it can actually provide additional focus. And it can act as a means to prevent, for example, procrastination or becoming distracted, because you have made this intention that you're going to do this particular task. So coming on to the actual wudu, first of all, there is the gargling. This has very positive effects on oral hygiene. It removes perhaps any remnants of food that may have gotten stuck in our teeth or wherever. When the nostrils are washed, this also has a calming effect. It cleanses the airways. It allows for built-up mucus to be removed. It clears the mind. Then you have the notion of washing the face, from where the hairline starts to the bottom of the face. This too has positive effects on circulation. And while we're washing the eyes, they're also cleansed of any rheum, any eye crust. You know, this mucus and dead cells that can accumulate, for example, through the night as we sleep. These might have built up. And mucus and rheum, if it's allowed to build up, can lead to eye infections and other problems. So when doing wudu, when doing the ablution, cleaning your eyes, this is actually a very good thing. It helps. Now, for the believer, generally, there is a huge recommendation to always remain in such a state, in the state of being purified, that they keep their wudu intact. And they renew it each time after visiting, for example, the bathroom, and anytime it breaks for any reason. So a person prior to going to pray will want to ensure that they're well-groomed, clean, well-dressed. Indeed, it is recommended in Islamic thought, and especially in ethics, that a person comb their hair, comb their beard. This applies to the sisters also, to the women also, that they make themselves beautiful prior to donning the clean clothes for the prayer, prior to coming to the place of the prayer. The entire act of ablution, the whole process, and like I said, I'm not going through the individual points, I'm going through it in a somewhat more holistic fashion. This entire act cleanses the mind, and the act of putting on clean clothes also plays an important part in calming a person, bringing about, you could say, a state of near tranquility or even tranquility. After all, when a person wants to visit their beloved, even if they've had a particularly difficult day, they'll still want to look their best, because there's nothing quite like the smile of the beloved when the lover sees it. So now we come on to this idea of beauty, because I've said beautification a number of times. So what is beauty? There's a beautiful hadith by Imam as-Sadiq, which reads, "Dress up and beautify yourself, for God is beautiful and he loves beauty. And make sure it is righteous beautification." This is from as-Sharia, volume 3, page 34, and it's hadith number 4. This leads us to this notion of righteous beautification. What does this mean? Unfortunately, give me a salawat first. Unfortunately, the world we live in, the word beauty has been corrupted, like many other words. It is now deemed beautiful if, for example, a lady reduces her covering and parades herself in a somewhat naked fashion. This is not the pure beauty that we're talking about. In fact, there have been discussions amongst thinkers and also some events that took place in the horrific wars of the 20th and 21st century, where a man who was strong and resistant to the tortures inflicted on him by the enemies, who couldn't be broken by the worst of tortures, was rendered completely impotent, completely broken by the manipulation of women he cared about. Such a man was forced to see his wife, his sister, his mother, his loved one, having her clothes removed, and therefore he was forced, since his honor as a man was being directly attacked and beaten, to capitulate and to do whatever was required by the enemy as a means to try and protect the honor of his loved one. Indeed, if we cast our minds to Karbala, we can see that the forces of the tyrant Yazid, following the murder of Imam Hussein and his companions in the epic of Ashura, immediately went to remove the veil and coverings of the ladies of his household as a means to humiliate them, to abuse them. Of course, such disgusting behavior failed to achieve the desired effect. The tyrant was destroyed by Said Zainab and Imam Sajjad's words and their reliance on God. But the effort, nevertheless, was made. If we look at modern society, we can see the prevailing current is for women to wear less, maybe in summer especially, that they're told that being paraded in the streets in a scantily clad manner or being used to advertise products, again, with very little clothing, to unfortunately appear in movies, in some movies and television programs without any clothing, this is somehow considered a type of being beautiful. What type of beauty is this? This is not beauty. This is abuse. This is manipulation. This is objectification. And indeed, yani it's a means to silence the resistive spirit of the human, to break the notion of the family, to encourage debauched behavior. And indeed, it is, in the opinion of many scholars of Islamic thought, a massive abuse, not just of women, but of humanity as a whole. So yielding back to our subject, Allah, God, as we know, is beautiful, and He loves beauty. So to beautify oneself in a decent, respectful, and honorable way is what is done before a person goes to start their prayer, before they do anything, as this is ensuring one of the rights of God. In fact, this is one that we will cover in the next session, and that is the right of keeping His limits. And thereby this helps us to ensure that we are indeed giving Him that which is due to Him. So now we have the person. They have beautified themselves. They've completed their ablution. They've put on clean, decent clothing. They've readied themselves to meet their beloved, to commune with their beloved. Now, before we carry on, there's an important point that must be clarified. So give me a salawat, please. Talking to, calling to God doesn't require a person being in a state of ritual purity. Yani, having just completed the ablution, necessarily. Rather, a person can talk to God at any time and in any condition. God in the Quran, in chapter number 40, which is Surah Al-Ghafir, the chapter of the forgiver, verse number 60, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He says, and your Lord says, call upon me, I will respond to you. Indeed, those who disdain my worship will enter hell, contemptible. So it is completely acceptable and indeed good for a person to call God, to talk to God at any time, at any place, be they in a state of ritual purity or not. And this is nothing strange. When a person is in an intimate and close relationship with another, they can go and speak to that person. They can go and talk to their beloved in any condition. Their beloved knows them and accepts them however they are. The beloved is there for their lover in any situation, any condition. To suggest that the only time a person can talk to their beloved is in a state of ritual purity and excellent grooming and being perfectly dressed, no, this is not right. This is not valid. Having said that, even for the lovers, there are times when they prepare themselves, when they clean themselves, when they wear nice, clean clothes, they groom themselves, they beautify themselves even before they meet. Perhaps they're going on a date. Perhaps they're going to go and sit for a nice meal or have a deep conversation, whatever the case. There are times when things can be informal, so to speak, and times when there is more effort put into how a person looks, when there is a certain formality, if you like, and a protocol, written or unwritten is for another discussion, that needs to be followed. This is very normal and not something that I believe is complicated or difficult for anyone to understand. So now, after he has groomed himself or herself, they've put on good, clean clothes, decent clothes, respectable clothes. The lover is now ready to enter the room to meet with, to use a more colloquial expression, to have a date with their beloved. They enter the room. It is customary and indeed recommended, for example, to have some perfume on the prayer mat, the meeting location, so that everything smells beautiful. The staleness of this world can be forgotten, even if only for a short while, so they can bask in the glory of their beloved and speak their heart to the one who understands their heart better than they do themselves. They can speak to someone who they may have upset, someone who they have a reason to beg for forgiveness. Speak to the one who has all power and authority over them, to the one who is the source of and the reason for their very existence. To someone in love with another, someone who has a clean, pure, deep love for another, they are always conscious of their actions, of what they have done, what they may have done to upset that who they love, that who is their very reason for existing, that who is their very reason for living, and who they never want to see upset, let alone be the one who upsets them. When they enter into a meeting with the object of their love, they feel a degree of shyness, of awe. Maybe their heart will flutter. Perhaps their beloved will look toward them. Perhaps their beloved will smile at them. As mentioned in the previous session, the relationship of a lover and beloved, there is, within the relationship of a lover and a beloved, there is an unwritten protocol where the lover is in such awe of their beloved, and this is amplified as proximity increases, as they get closer, as they meet. The lover can even feel the open arms of their beloved, welcoming them to the meeting place. The mere thought that their behavior, their negligence, their mistakes, their errors might result in their beloved turning away from them, really it causes the tears to start building up, for their voice to start trembling, and for a great pain, a great feeling of dread to overcome their hearts. But as they enter the meeting place, the musalla, they can see their beloved waiting for them, the most beautiful smile on his face, welcoming them to come, sit, come and talk, to spill out the pain in their heart, to take comfort, to cry out of regret for mistakes, for sins, for the state of the world, or even out of sheer joy at being with their beloved. Once on the musalla, the lover prepares themselves further to begin their dialogue, to begin their discussion. Now, with all of these preliminary preparations completed, the lover is ready to begin his devotion, his adoration, to submit himself fully, to fall into the open embrace of his beloved. And the first thing is the intention. And intention is an extremely important notion that we had touched upon earlier. So give me a salawat and we can proceed. An intention is a thing, it's a state of mind even, that can change a good action into bad and potentially morph a bad action into the most beautiful of things. The intention of the lover is to become closer to, ever closer to become absorbed in the loving arms of their beloved. The intention is telling their beloved that this action that I'm doing, this prayer, this my action, my everything, all this cleansing and beautification that I have done It's for no reason except that I want to become close to you. I want to become intimate with you. Now, here we have another aside. And I must emphasize that this notion of intimacy is not the perversion of the word that is in the common lexicon that is understood by many people, especially in the collective West and parts of the world that have been corrupted by the machinations of things like Hollywood, Bollywood, and such things. Perhaps it could be argued that the type of intimacy that we're speaking of is perhaps emotional intimacy, as per the common definition. But it is so much more than that. So much more than just emotional intimacy. Others might posit that it's spiritual intimacy. But in reality, such qualified intimacies are not sufficient to describe this type of intimacy that we're trying to understand here. It is an intimacy of the entire existence of one into that which is the source of said existence. Indeed, perhaps one of the best ways that it can be described, the best analog, I suppose, that can be found, is that pure, clean, and most beautiful intimacy shared by a child and their mother. As the child is completely helpless, weak, pathetic, they know nothing, and they cry out of their own ineptitude at doing anything. But when they look into the loving face of their mother, everything is fine. Everything is immediately fine. All the problems disappear. They feel safe. They know that nothing can harm them. It is a truly profound, beautiful, amazing thing. And the believer really is so blessed that they can experience this not just 5 times a day as they perform the prayer, but at every moment. If they could but see the beautiful face of God looking down upon them and know that they are always in the security of his most perfect embrace. Even this description, I feel, is lacking, but it's the simplest and easiest to understand explanation that I could find, that I could craft in order to try and explain this. It is the notion of going to someone who loves you entirely, unconditionally, someone you can rely on, someone who will listen to you, who will console you, who will share in your happiness and be a shoulder in your difficulties and sadness. It is a means of being completely enveloped in a feeling of complete safety, complete security. So the lover makes his or her intention that I want to seek closeness to my beloved. As per the prayer of Prophet Abraham, the friend of God, as quoted in the Quran, in the chapter of Al-An'am, the chapter of the cattle, which is chapter number 6, verses 162 to 163, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he says, "Say, my prayer and my worship and my life and my death are devoted to God, the Lord of the worlds. No associate has he. Thus I am commanded, and I am the first of those who submit." That everything the lover has is entirely devoted to his beloved. What a most beautiful situation if you think about it, where the lover devotes everything, their entire being to their beloved, that they submit their entire will, that everything they do is for their beloved. How fortunate is someone who has a beloved that they can feel about in such a way, that they are entirely absorbed in their beloved. The lover then makes his intention that, in this case, as we're going through a simple 2-unit prayer, a short meeting, a short liaison, that they make their intention in this way, that I am performing this prayer, which is devoted to my master, my beloved, that I desire to become ever closer to him. Now, at the point of committing this intention, the lover is fully focused, is entirely engrossed in their beloved. All they see is their beloved. Nothing else matters. To quote Mansur Hallaj, who said, "The beloved does not drink a single drop of water without seeing his face in the cup." The lover only sees the face of his beloved, and almost in an entirely involuntary manner, The lover raises their hands and testifies, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. God is the most profound, the most sublime. The raising of the hands as if to say, nothing of this world has any consequence at this time. Only He, only His face is of import. And so everything else is pushed aside. It's deemed irrelevant. With the testimony of God is the greatest, the lover sees the compassion and love and profound mercy and sheer magnanimity of his beloved. And again, one might say, perhaps in a somewhat involuntary manner, but while fully aware of their actions, they move to wanting to sing their beloved's praise in the most perfect manner, the manner that is most beloved by the beloved, that indeed was taught by the beloved, and is the way the beloved loves to be praised. So the lover begins his adoration of his beloved by singing his praises. And he says, in the name of God, the merciful, the compassionate, praise be to God, Lord of the worlds, the most compassionate, the most merciful, master of the day of judgment. These are, of course, the first 4 verses of the chapter of the opening, the first chapter of the Quran. As the lover contemplates the profundity of these words, tears well in his eyes. He cannot contain what he's saying. Imagine this lowly person, this lover, is engaged in a dialogue. Yes, a dialogue with the master of the day of judgment, with the Lord of all the worlds. The lover pauses to collect himself and continues, determined to ensure that he tell his beloved that it is you we worship and upon you we call for help. He pauses again. He's again overcome. He's overcome with great joy that he's having a discourse, a direct conversation with the one that he truly loves, truly worships, and the only one that he dare to call out for when seeking help, the only one that can help him. And he affirms that this is what he truly does. The lover then checks himself. Does he really only love? Does he really only worship him? Does he really only call out to him for help? Or is he just playing lip service to his beloved? He knows he cannot fool his beloved, for the beloved knows everything and is fully aware of even his most hidden, his darkest of thoughts. He collects himself. He feels tears welling up in his eyes. He can feel his legs trembling in awe. And he vows to himself and to his beloved that yes, 1,000,000 times yes, I only call out to you. I only love you. I only worship you. I only seek assistance from you. Now tears flowing with a great desire to become better, to be worthy of being the lover of this most amazing beloved. The lover continues, guide us on the straight path. He collects himself and he begs his beloved to help him, almost as if to confirm that he only asks him for help. He asks that his most perfect beloved guide him, keep him on the straight path, the path of righteousness, to never let him fall by the wayside, to never let him fall, to always keep him within his embrace, within his safety. He shudders again, feels the need to carry on, to explain further what this straight path is, that he begs his beloved to keep him on. With a trembling voice, filled with awe, he says, the path of those you have blessed, not of those against whom there is anger, nor of those who are misguided. He shivers, his legs tremble as he recites this line. He fears angering his beloved. He fears finding himself on a path that doesn't go to him, that takes him away from him. His tears are now flowing like a river. The lover, with great fear, but filled with great hope, begs that his beloved keep him, guide him towards the path of those beautiful souls that are also from the greatest lovers of the beloved, those who are from the most blessed, those who the beloved loves and who love him. He shakes, his legs are trembling, he collects himself, and the mere thought of being those who become deserving of his beloved's wrath, he becomes terrified. The fear of becoming lost starts to engulf him. His heart starts beating faster. The terror of falling into misguidance, of leaving the path of truth and falling into darkness. The tears are now flowing freely from his eyes as he reflects on his own wretched self. But then, as if miraculously, as he completes these words, crying and terrified, like a lost child, he can almost feel the most beautiful of embraces. He's filled with a profound serenity. His beloved smiles upon him, looks at him lovingly, as if to comfort this wretched soul, this weak lover, this broken-hearted lover. It is almost as if he can hear his beloved saying, "My dear, I promise to help you if you come to me. I will run toward you. You take one step and see I have taken 10. That I will never misguide you. That if you love me, I will open for you the doors of the most profound of blessings. Overcome. Overcome, the lover feels he cannot but praise his beloved once more. This huge kindness, this amazing grace, everything. That even while knowing how wretched he is, his beloved still treats him with such compassion. Oh, what joy! He feels overwhelmed with joy that his beloved has not turned away, that his beloved is at his side and will always be at his side, that he is compelled to once more sing the praises of his most beautiful, most lovely, most wonderful beloved. And he says, Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen, praise be to God, the Lord of the worlds. And indeed, within the prayer, it is a very praised act that in the prayer, after the completion of the chapter of the opening, that the person praying say this. And when reflecting on the entire chapter of the opening, truly, to the wayfarer, to the lover, this is something that is almost reflexive, that they're compelled by this most profound of love to sing his praises. Give me a salawat, please. As he recites these words, a serenity envelopes him. He feels the warm embrace of his beloved. He feels safe and feels a need to further recite from the words of his beloved. Now, the lover over here can recite any other chapter of the Quran, but the normal convention is the smaller chapters are recited. But there is no issue. Even if the lover wishes to recite the longest chapter of the Quran, this is his choice. In our case, we will use the shortest chapter of Quran, the chapter of abundance. The lover now recites another chapter from the Quran, where he feels his beloved is again talking to him directly. Of course, the Quran is the direct word of God, so he starts. In the name of God, the most merciful, the most compassionate. Indeed, we have given you abundance. So pray to your Lord and sacrifice. He who hates you is the loser. This is, of course, Surah Al-Kawthar, the chapter of abundance, number 108, verses 1 to 3. Now, when he recites this, he can feel the profound love of his beloved. He feels entirely absorbed, enveloped, and safe. The words of the chapter fill his heart with joy, for he knows that his beloved never lies. And if his beloved is saying those who hate you are from the losers, he knows this is the case. There is no doubt. He feels closer to his beloved. He feels ever closer. And again, as his cup overflows with great love, he raises his hands once more to throw the world to the side and says, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. This overpowers him, completely overpowers him. He feels he has to bow to the majesty of his beloved. He moves into the bowing position and feels he must glorify, he must sanctify, he must say in profound obeisance, all praise, all glory is to God, the entirely incomparable. In saying this, he is reminded of the beloved Prophet Muhammad, who is the one who conveyed these teachings to all of humanity, including this lowly lover. And he immediately, reflexively asks his beloved to, "O God, shower your praise and blessings upon Muhammad and the pure family of Muhammad." As he completes this, again, he's filled with a profound certainty, a great joy. The tears continue to flow from his eyes as he understands that his beloved hears him. And he gets up, again saying with every facet of his being, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. And then he feels he needs to tell the world, to tell everyone how amazing his beloved is, how his beloved listens to the one who praises him. And so he says, God hears and listens to the one who praises him. A joy envelopes him once more as he feels held, he feels protected, he feels safe, he feels loved. And once more, again, instinctively, as a lover would applaud his beloved and tell them how amazing they are, just if they look at them with a beautiful smile, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. The words leave his lips, but originate at the core of his being. And the lover is compelled to prostrate entirely, not just bow, that isn't enough, but to prostrate, to fall to the ground in front of his beloved. The lover feels bowing is not enough. It's not enough to praise. It's not enough to acknowledge, to testify to the greatness, to the awesomeness of his beloved. And he feels compelled to fall to the ground, to fall prostrate, to fall to the ground in complete awe of his beloved. What a most beautiful station to be on the floor at the feet of your beloved. His forehead placed on a tablet of earth, earth that is from the most blessed of places, where the purest of blood was shed by the worst of the worst. Blood that was shed to ensure the name of the beloved, his beloved, be always raised, be always the most high. Oh, the joy. Oh, the joy he feels that again he is overwhelmed, that the love of his beloved races through his entire being. Reflecting on this, feeling this, experiencing this, the lover closes his eyes and says, with a slight smile on his face, filled from the inside with the most amazing joy, all praise, all glory is only for God, who is the most high, who is the most sublime. He realizes that in the position he is in, he feels that his beloved is the most high, both in relation to him physically, but always. And his beloved is without doubt the most sublime, the most amazing. Tears once more start to well in his eyes as he remembers the master of the martyrs, who in the epic of Ashura continued even in the most difficult of times to ensure that he never missed this divine meeting, that we would never miss this divine meeting. Even as the arrows rained down everywhere, as heroes defended the ones in commune with God, as the heroes held their own commune with the swords and the spears and the arrows, with God witnessing their more beautiful love and sacrifice, both for their imam, their beloved leader, but also for his sake. He loved it so much that he chose to immortalize these blessed souls. Overcome with emotion, he feels compelled to ask his beloved once more, shower Prophet Muhammad and his pure family with infinite blessings and praise, and to ever raise their position. Oh God, shower your praise and blessings upon Muhammad and his pure family. He gets up, reflecting at the sheer majesty of his beloved, that the entire universe bows to him, yet he asked the angels to bow to his grandfather, Adam. This thought again fills him with profound joy. It increases his love for his beloved, something he thought was not possible. As he comes up from being prostrated, he feels compelled to say once more, while raising his hands, again as a means to cast aside the temptations of the world and the whispers of Satan and his minions, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. Suddenly he remembers the negligence that at times engulfs him, the mistakes, the sins, the crimes, the bad thoughts, that he makes during the moments when he becomes negligent of his beloved, when he forgets his beloved. He shudders. He lurches forward, his throat tightens. He feels the need to atone, to beg for forgiveness. He looks down, filled with shame, filled with guilt. He sits quietly for a moment and meekly acknowledges his manifest faults and failures, but has a certainty, an infinite hope in the magnanimity and limitless mercy of his beloved. He says, with great remorse, with full remorse, with a deep yearning for forgiveness, with pain at his shortcomings and failures, knowing his sins, knowing his mistakes, solemnly vowing to never repeat them, with a trembling voice. He says, I seek forgiveness from God, from my Lord, and I repent to him. On saying this, he's filled with a transformative joy, a feeling that his beloved is once again smiling at him, knowing the sincerity of his repentance, comforting him, telling him that I will forgive you. He then remembers the words from the supplication of Kumail, where Imam Ali taught and said, "O my God, my master, my protector, my Lord, will you cause the fire to overtake faces which have prostrated in adoration to your greatness? Tongues that have sincerely professed your oneness and given thanks to you in praise? Hearts that have acknowledged your divinity through verification? Minds that have acquired knowledge of you until they become humble? Bodily members that have eagerly hastened to the places of your worship in obedience and implored your forgiveness in submission?" He freezes. He becomes scared even. What if his beloved would punish such a person for his crimes, for his negligence, for his plethora of sins, of crimes, for his arrogance, for his self-love, for his conceit, for his countless vices, for his bad thoughts, for all that he succumbs to when he ignorantly, in his abject stupidity, thinks that his beloved cannot see? Once more, the lover recalls his behavior, his actions. The tears well up. He jolts. Fear goes through him. His face becomes ashen. He looks down in shame. But then he remembers that Dua Kumail continues and says, no, no such opinion is held of you, nor has such been reported, thanks to your bounty, O the most generous master. He's again filled with such a profound, a deep, a complete love for his beloved, a certainty that the mercy, compassion, and profound love of his beloved encompasses everything. And he feels he has to once more glorify his beloved and say, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. This causes every cell in his body, every part of his soul to go back into prostration, to prostrate to this loving, merciful, kind, caring beloved one. And once more, he goes through the process of prostration. Once he completes the prostration, he sits back up and now wishes to repeat the cycle. But how to get up? How to stand up when in front of such greatness, when he is nothing? How to stand up in front of such love, such an amazing beloved master, such an amazing beloved Lord? How to even dare to look up, let alone stand up, when faced with such an awesome master? He reaches down to the ground and says, by the might and power of God, I do rise and I do sit. He finds the strength returns to his legs, to his arms, and he is able to stand once more. He can feel the might and power of his beloved energize him. He can feel his beloved carrying him up, strengthening him, and he can continue and repeat his cycle of adoration. Now, for the sake of brevity, we will not repeat the entire unit. There can be differences, but they're optional, and they all fit into what we have mentioned over here. However, following this session, I would invite all listening to go back and reflect on a second unit. and to feel and experience it, to feel the hand of God as it helps you to get up, to feel the warmth of the face of God, to feel completely enveloped in his mercy. Let us now proceed by examining how we can conclude this liaison, this litany, this meeting of lovers. Let us look at the ending of the prayer with the testification, and then we can conclude with the salutation. Give me a salawat, please.
محمد وآل محمد.
So now, with the second prostration complete of the second unit, the lover sits on his knees, looking down. He contemplates his existence, his relationship with his beloved. He feels he must testify, he must bear witness to that which connects him to his beloved. Perchance his many sins, his crimes, his mistakes, they can all be atoned for with such a sincere and complete testimony. He says, I bear witness there is nothing worthy of worship. Nothing worthy of worship except God, the unique, the singular, the one who is without any partner. He continues, I furthermore testify, I bear witness that Muhammad is his servant and his messenger. On mentioning the name of the best of his beloved's creation, Prophet Muhammad, the lover has no choice. He needs once more to beg his beloved to shower his blessings upon the beloved Prophet Muhammad and his family. And so he says, O God, shower your blessings, your praise upon Muhammad and the pure family of Muhammad. He can feel the love for the beloved. He can feel the love of his beloved for Prophet Muhammad and those who love Prophet Muhammad and his family. And a warm feeling surrounds him. He feels as if the Prophet Muhammad is himself there in front of him. And he feels compelled to send his greetings, his salutations directly to the most beloved of his beloved. He looks down. He feels shy at the awesomeness of his beloved and the best of his beloved's creation. And he says, Peace be upon you, O blessed messenger of God, and may his mercy and blessings envelope you. He listens quietly. Did he just hear a reply? Did the prophet of God reply to this sinful creature? His eyes well up once more, his heart shakes. The prophet answered my salutation. The most beloved of my beloved answered my salutation. Oh, what joy! Oh, what beauty! Oh, what amazing grace that a sinner such as me can be worthy of such an honor. All of a sudden, he can sense all of the sincere, righteous believers, alive or in the mercy of the beloved, surround him. Just as the blessed Saint Mary, the mother of Jesus, the Messiah, peace be upon them both, the same way she felt when she was told by God that, O Mary, be devoted to your Lord and bow down and kneel with those who kneel. Just like the blessed Saint Mary felt that all the believers, the righteous, were praying with her, he too feels such a sensation, and he feels he must send his greetings, his salutations to all the righteous servants of God. And so he says, Peace be upon us all, and upon all of God's righteous and sincere servants. He thinks. His eyes well up further. Somehow his beloved inspired him to include himself within the righteous and sincere servants of God. He who is a lowly, sinful wretch. The love of his beloved overflows once more, and with his voice breaking, out of awe, out of love, he says, And peace be upon you, and the mercy of God be upon you. He stops for a second, wondering, what did he just say? May the mercy of God be upon God? Has he gone mad? But he realizes he was talking to both God, to his beloved, as well as the angels who are always in his beloved's direct presence, who oversee his creation and who execute his every command without question. He once more realizes the greatness of God, the greatness of his beloved. Imagine his beloved, the one who wakes him in the morning with the chirping of the birds, even on the coldest winter day, and the one who puts him gently to sleep as the night closes in. The one to whom he speaks before being ushered to sleep by the loving lullaby of his beloved. The one to whom he confesses his sins, his crimes, his mistakes, his errors, his bad thoughts, everything that he committed on the day that has just ended. The one who he begs to pardon him, to forgive him, and every time, on seeing his sincere tears of repentance, comforts him, sings him a lullaby, and rocks him kindly to sleep. He can't hold it in any longer, and he doesn't want this meeting to end. He senses the two notaries, the two angels who are always at his right and left. He feels them, and he wishes they only write that which is good and ignore that which is bad from his actions and behavior. He raises his hand 3 times. The first time he looks forward, and the second to the right, and the third to the left, each time saying, Allahu Akbar, God is the greatest. He feels the angels will have no choice but to write that he, this lowly wretch, this pathetic creature, has testified to God's greatness, that he has glorified his beloved. And that must count for something. That must be noted. As he completes this meeting, he feels an overpowering gratitude to the Prophet Muhammad and to his family for teaching a wretch like him how to commune with the Lord of the universes. But wait, does he hear something? Yes, he is reminded of the verse of Quran, which reads, God and his angels give blessings to the Prophet. O you who believe, call for blessings on him and greet him with a prayer of peace. This is from the chapter of the parties, Surah Al-Ahzab, chapter 33, verse 56. He now feels compelled to, as he completes his prayer, his dialogue, his meeting, his liaison with his beloved, to send salutations on his beloved Prophet, the beloved of his beloved, and says with a heart filled with love, real love, O God, shower your praise and blessings upon Muhammad and the pure family of Muhammad. Give me a salam, please.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
As the lover completes his prayer, he's overcome with a profound joy and a sense of contentment. He looks for his rosary and starts to glorify, to sanctify, to praise God. As the beads pass his finger, he passes his finger over the beads 34 times, saying at each passing, Allahu Akbar. God is the greatest. With each bead passing his fingers, he can feel the greatness of his beloved. That now, even after he has finished his prayer, he still feels, he always feels, that truly his beloved is the greatest, the most amazing, the best of the best in all things. He feels a slight smile form on his face, a gentle smile that the lover has when contemplating his beloved. He feels a warmth flow into him. Could this be the embrace of my beloved, he wonders? Could this be the embrace of my master? As he completes the 34th bead, he feels he must declare to all that all praise belongs to God, to his beloved, that his beloved is truly the most praiseworthy. He then passes his fingers over the next 34 beads, caressing each bead and saying, Alhamdulillah, all praise belongs to God. Again, he feels a warmth, an embrace. He looks around, and everywhere he looks, he sees the face of his beloved. Everywhere he sees pure beauty. He feels a smile once more rise from his very soul to his face, a smile of joy, of that pure joy, on feeling his beloved. He notices he has completed the 33rd bead, and yet his praise, his glorification of God is as yet incomplete. He wishes to praise and glorify his beloved more. He realizes that even if he spent every waking moment praising and glorifying his beloved, it would still be but a tiny drop in the ocean that is his beloved. But he doesn't want to stop. With the remaining 33 beads, he caresses each of them softly, a little slower, as if to delay time, as if he is stroking the very cheek of his beloved, with each bead saying, Subhanallah, all glory belongs to God. He feels calm. He feels his beloved is with him, will always be with him, will never leave him. And this moves him greatly. With tears of joy in his eyes coming from the very core of his being, he completes his rosary. As the last of the final 33 beads pass his fingers, he can feel the caress that his beloved gives him. He feels a joy he cannot describe. He feels moved in a way he didn't think possible. He remembers also that this rosary was taught to him by the daughter of his most beloved prophet, the Lady Fatima Zahra, whose martyrdom actually is today. And he feels that he must, once more, beg his beloved to send his praise, his blessings upon Lady Zahra, her blessed father, and her children. And so he says, O God, shower your blessings, your praise upon Muhammad and the pure family of Muhammad. As he completes this, he feels a huge compulsion to go back into prostration, to thank his beloved for the countless bounties that has been bestowed upon him, to thank his beloved for not turning away, despite his countless sins, his countless crimes, his oppression of his own self and indeed of others that he has tried to remedy, that he has tried to atone for. He wants to thank his beloved for overlooking his bad thoughts, for allowing him to have this communion, this liaison, this beautiful and oh so intimate dialogue. He falls back into the Sajjad position, prostrate with his forehead on the earthen tablet, made from the purest earth of Karbala, and begins to once more thank his beloved. All my thanks to you, my Lord, my Master. He repeats this multiple times over and over, not wanting to get up, not wanting to stop, not wanting to ever get up, to stay prostrate to his beloved, to always be at the feet of his beloved. And yet somehow, from where he doesn't quite understand, he begins to feel an overpowering love emanate from his beloved, perhaps? He wants to love all that his beloved loves, and he feels, he can sense, he can even smell that beautiful perfume of the best of God's creation, Prophet Muhammad and his pure family, unable to stop himself, unable to show any restraint, feeling that everything is now outside his control, and with tears flowing like rivers from his eyes. He begs his beloved, O God, shower your praise and blessings upon Muhammad and the pure family of Muhammad. He repeats this a number of times. He feels overcome by a profound joy. As he contemplates his prostration of thanks, he feels a compulsion to plant a gentle kiss on the earthen tablet, as if to kiss, metaphorically, the very face of God and the earth where the pure blood of God was shed. And thus, this most beautiful of meetings, this adoration, this sanctification of the most beloved concludes. The lover now has to proceed with his day. He feels sad that he has to leave this place of safety, of joy, the place where he communes with his beloved. Yet he realizes that his beloved is always with him. Be he on the musalla, be he on the road, be he going to work, be he going to school, be he anywhere. And he feels his strength return. He feels that as long as his beloved is by his side, he can take on the world. He can take on any trial and be safe in the knowledge, in the certainty that he is never alone. He smiles. He remembers that shortly he will be meeting once more with his beloved, and that his beloved will always and is always by his side. وآخر الدعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا ممتحنة امتحنك الله الذي خلقك قبل أن يخلقك فوجدك لما امتحنك صابرا وزعمنا أنا لك أولياء ومصدقون وصابرون لكل ما آتانا به أبوك صلى الله عليه وآله وأتى به وصيه نسألك إن كنا صدقناك إلا ألحقتنا بتصديقنا لهما لنبشر أنفسنا بأننا قد طهرنا بولايتك. السلام عليك يا بنت رسول الله، السلام عليك يا بنت نبي الله، السلام عليك يا بنت حبيب الله، السلام عليك يا بنت خليل الله، السلام عليك يا بنت صفي الله، السلام عليك يا بنت أمين الله، السلام عليك يا بنت خير خلق الله، السلام عليك يا بنت أفضل أنبياء الله ورسله وملائكته، السلام عليك يا بنت خير البرية، السلام عليك يا سيدة نساء العالمين من الأولين والآخرين، السلام عليك يا زوجة ولي الله وخير الخلق بعد رسول الله، السلام عليك يا أم الحسن والحسين سيدي شباب أهل الجنة، السلام عليك أيتها الصديقة الشهيدة، السلام عليك أيتها الرضية المرضية، السلام عليك أيتها الفاضلة الزكية، السلام عليك أيتها الحوراء الإنسية، السلام عليك أيتها التقية النقية، السلام عليك أيتها المحدثة العليمة، السلام عليك أيتها المظلومة المغصوبة، السلام عليك أيتها المضطهدة المقهورة، السلام عليك يا فاطمة بنت رسول الله ورحمة الله وبركاته، صلى الله عليك وعلى روحك وبدنك، أشهد أنك مضيت على بينة من ربك، وأن من سرك فقد سر رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. جفاك فقد جفا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن آذاك فقد آذى رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن وصلك فقد وصل رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. ومن قطعك فقد قطع رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله. لأنك بضعة من وروحه الذي بين جنبي. أشهد الله ورسله وملائكته أني راض عمن رضيت عنه، ساخط على من سخطت عليه، متبرئ ممن تبرأت منه، موال لمن واليتي، معاد لمن عاديتي، مبغض لمن أبغضتي، محب لمن أحببتي. وكفى بالله شهيدا وحسيبا وجازيا ومثيبا. وصل اللهم على محمد وآله.